Órale! Bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFB podcast. This is your host, Jorge Martin, and we're going home for me, Familia. We're going home for me. You guys all know I'm a Ram fan. So this one, with blue and gold colored glasses today. But before we jump in, I just want to make sure you're following Familia FFB on YouTube. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. This NFL Insider series is caliente. I got great guests because right here. Oh my goodness. Jourdan Rodrigue from The Athletic. She's covered the Rams. I think this is year 4.
Going into year 5.
Going
into year 5. Crazy. I know. Crazy.
Oh my goodness.
It's been such a fun ride. First of all, thank you so much for having me. We have such good side conversation. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, on the broadcast now. And Rams fans know this. If Rams fans follow me, they know I've just been so enjoying every single second, even the crazy chaos, total dark chaos years that we've all kind of gone through together. The fan base has been so engaged and welcoming. So I love it. And I've been really excited. And as you know, it's been there's been some crazy highs, a few lows, but most of it's been really fun the whole time.
I can imagine, and you brought us so much great stuff. I mean, obviously, there's been Sean McVay has given us so much good stuff. But I do want to call out to the Familia community. If you have not checked out Play Callers, the podcast that our amiga Jourdan put together last year, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's timeless. It's evergreen. I think you need to check it out. She even kills it on the voiceover work. So
that was outside my comfort zone. So I appreciate you saying that. The voiceover is, I've long hated the sound of my own voice. It's why I write. So
everybody does that. Everybody does that. Well, I wanted to jump in. Let's just start. I don't want to talk about contract situations. Mm-hmm. I know those things get figured out. But Matthew Stafford, a year ago, there were so many questions about his health. I mean, I hate it when the fantasy community kind of starts to retire a guy before they do. But I kept saying, if he's healthy, this offense is going to be fantastic. And you covered the play. How much was he just in total command, and how can that translate into this year?
Yeah, when he's healthy, he's quite clearly a top 10 quarterback. I'd probably put him in my personal, just watching what he does and how he does it. I'd probably put him in my top 6 or 7 in the NFL, when he's healthy, like he was. He's a rising tide that lifts the boats, right? Because he is what he's able to do, but also how he's able to communicate and command different elements of this offense. It really has become a collaboration between himself and Sean McVay, and then previously with Kevin O'Connell, and then now with Mike LaFleur. And I think what really is valuable for the coaching staff is having a guy who's basically like the encyclopedia of football, who's seen everything. He's seen the game cycle around twice at this point in terms of the ebbs and flows that happen every 3 to 4 years as teams figure each other out and try new things and throw back to old things. And there's nothing he hasn't seen. And when he's healthy the way that he was last year, I mean, we saw it. It can, the way he can distribute the ball, the way that he can manipulate the pocket, the way that he can make any throw, first of all. But then he also seemed to take it upon himself to get a little bit slimmer, to get a little bit lighter on his feet last year. He would kind of laugh it off, I'm playing a lot of tennis and all of that. But we would see skinny Stafford running around a little bit more than usual, and it just helped bring some of that out of structure work, particularly when some of the receivers got used to it. Demarcus Robinson really comes to mind. He's a great out of structure receiver for a quarterback. That's a name fantasy football people should keep an eye on this year, by the way. And I really think that you could really see the creativity emerge, and that also shone through in every element of what he was able to do. I mean, he was so crucial in teaching Puka Nacua how to be an NFL receiver. And obviously Puka had Cooper Kupp as well. And Puka is just so naturally talented and bright. But at the same time, you need the quarterback to be able to clearly dictate and communicate, this is where I need you. We'll get creative, in week 14, 15, once you get comfortable, Puka, but this is where I need you at this time. This is how I want you to have your hands. This is how I want you to move your body. All of this down to the minutia. It's just remarkable to watch him work. And when he's healthy and he's feeling good, there's kind of this, and I've long said this, I coined the phrase darkly chaotic Matthew Stafford. There's sort of this killer mentality around him that he just has when he is feeling good. When he's feeling good, because something kind of crazy is about to happen. You can see it in the way he carries himself, the way he throws, the way he communicates back and forth, talks a little smack to the defenses. And that was him all year last year. I expect him to be healthy coming into this year. Obviously, yes, as you mentioned, he's dealing with the contract situation. Those things, usually tend to get figured out before training camp with this team. That's their timeline. But at the same time, like, he's got, I think part of this, and I mentioned this before, you asked about his health. I think part of him or his team, agencies, all that, putting out the sort of leak that he wanted more guaranteed money on this deal. I think for it really, truly, maybe less so about the money itself and maybe more so about sending a signal. This dude expects he will play for several more years because of how he bounced back last year, because of how good he felt relative to the bumps and bruises, aches and pains of what football is, and the level that he can still play at. I think also, with the money, wanting more money based on the market and all of that. At the same time, I do think twofold it served as a significant signal to not just the Rams, but to the rest of the league. Like, this dude does expect to play for a couple more years.
That's just music to Rams fans' ears, but also fantasy football players, because he's not highly drafted because he doesn't run, but he definitely could be a guy that throws for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, and there's plenty of room for those guys in the NFL. I want to jump to the receivers real quick. You were one of the first people to be on Puka last year. The draft folks were like, they liked him, but they, talked about the health history. You talked about how things were happening, and
things were happening in OTAs. Yeah. I was like, what's he doing out there with the first team? Yeah.
Where does he go from here? The guy in his rookie year got 160 targets and set the yardage record, set the receptions record. He's being drafted in the first round of fantasy drafts. Is there a ceiling?
Yeah, it's interesting because so much of there's multiple things being true at the same time. Like, his rookie season was because he's very gifted, right? It happened because he's extremely gifted, because he had Matthew Stafford playing at an all-time high level in his career, because the run game was working, and also because of necessity, because Cooper Kupp was hurt. And so all of those things combined together in like the most magical way, right? And led to, and Puka himself rose to meet those moments along the way. There were times when I remember I'd see him last year in the locker room, and you kind of go over to him and be like, are you okay? Because he'd be so tired. He'd be sitting there just like staring, just like so tired, because it's so much for a young player, even a year 2 or 3 player, to take on what he had to take on last year. But he handled it so well. Obviously, the stats are one thing, but as a person, he handled it so well. And what I think is really important for fantasy football people to remember is two things. One is that he's coming in after his first full NFL offseason. So he's not jumping right from training for testing and pro days right into his first NFL camp after a college season. He's coming into, okay, this is what a real NFL training offseason looks like. This is how it works. He's been training with Cooper Kupp. So all of those things are significant. At the same time, what fantasy people should remember is that Cooper Kupp does expect to be healthy this year. And so he is, I know he's feeling better than he has. Last year he's alluded to it on a podcast he recently did with his wife, Anna. Just some things, life things, as well as health things that were going on with him that you could just feel he just never quite got himself right all through the year. And it started with those hamstring issues in the last winter or the previous off season, and then carried into the season where it just kept popping up. He just never quite was right. And so now he's really had time to reset, recharge. So you're going to look at target distribution. You're going to look at a team that's still going to run the ball or want to run the ball like they did last year. The investments they made up front show that. So that's when you have to factor in, okay, how many times is this team really going to throw the ball? What's the Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford offense? So a bleep ton, they're going to throw the ball. A bleep ton is what I would say. But also, like the balance of this offense, it's going to look, I personally think, and it's very early, so caveat, fantasy football people, do not get mad at me, please. But I personally think that it's going to be a lot more even distribution, because there was a lot of necessity in what Puka had to do last year.
Yeah. Well, when you say even, are you talking about even distribution between Puka and Cooper?
Yeah, I think Cooper,
Yeah.
Puka, and DeMarcus, I think that you're going to see a lot of that type of thing. And like, I can't emphasize enough how strong that connection between Matthew Stafford and Matthew's always loved playing with an X receiver, like a true X. And that's how they were kind of using DeMarcus middle of last season. I remember I was talking to a couple coaches and they told me about how DeMarcus was doing all these crazy cool things in practice. And he's obviously a veteran. He knows where to be. He had a great camp, but he just didn't see the field very much early in the time. They were trying to onboard Puka. There's only so many different things you can do in the course of a game planning week. And so then DeMarcus, about halfway through the season, they were watching all these practice cut-ups and they just started talking. All these coaches started talking to each other like, why the bleep isn't DeMarcus on the field? Why don't we have him more involved? So then they started building into what his skill set really was. And then again, when you saw Matthew go out of structure or really look for that receiver who's just a super friendly target, like DeMarcus was that guy. So between Cooper Kupp, I mean, I think this is a very underrated. I mean, it's hard to say underrated when the guy won the Triple Crown a couple of years ago, but like truly, I do think this is a very underrated receiving core between those three players, not just because they have different skill sets. Cooper is going to still be in the F role, the Cooper role, doing all these different types of things. Puka is Robert Woods. They'd like him to be Robert Woods. And DeMarcus is like the X, the true X guy. And all of those players can interchange through a lot of different things. And they can, they're obviously very physical in the run game, but that importance also is very key and critical with what Matthew Stafford can do and the chemistry he's built with them. So that's why I say got a crash course in chemistry with Puka Nacua last year between him and Matthew. Cooper has obviously always had that and still has that and will still, I think, get, a significant amount of these reps. And he's always had, like when he's got a lot of option routes, all those things. Well, he's usually the first read against zone coverages. And then when Puka had to step in for him, he became the first read against zone coverages. And then they split him more into different man looks, those types of things. It evolves throughout the season. I just think you're going to see them get the ball to all three of these guys a significant amount.
I love the sound of that. I mean, and especially DeMarcus Robinson. I think he won some fantasy leagues last year. The way he performed in weeks 15 to 17. I believe he got a touchdown every week, or at least 2 to 3
it's like
weeks.
5 in a row. And like he had what I remember, because I do hear like I haven't played fantasy football in a long time, but I do obviously keep track of like the conversation and all of that. And what I heard from fantasy football people was like, what a clutch, like later round pickup to kind of have, and then he emerges when you need him. But that's also who DeMarcus is as a receiver, because that's how Matthew Stafford thinks of him too. So I just think it was interesting, and obviously I think when I was out at OTAs that they all look healthy first and foremost, which is really important. But DeMarcus, it's kind of funny because he seems to be aging in reverse a bit. I think he really likes being out here in LA. And all three of those guys were very, very involved very early on.
No, I love it. Any last minute health updates on Cooper?
I think Cooper's healthy. I think he's going to be ready to go, barring some crazy surprise or off-site training situation, which he's very smart about and practiced at this point. So I doubt that will come up. You're always looking at the age factor, and I'd really got to see him, full gas against actual NFL defenders in contact and those types of things. But mentally, I think mentally getting through the repetitive injuries last year, that was what really became so tough on him. So I think he's feeling clear. I think he's feeling healthy. Obviously, you're always going to think the age, and then it's been tough for him to stay healthy through an entire season. But it's hard for fantasy people to say, okay, overlook that guy, because what he can do. I mean, my God, like when he's healthy, when he's on the field, what he's capable of. So I would say it's like it just kind of middle risk, high reward, just based on the injury history. But I don't have any reason to believe he won't be healthy going into the season. Fantastic.
Well, another health update that as along with one of the great finds, one of the league winners in fantasy football. I think he was like on the second most championship teams last year, Kyren Williams. Obviously he had some foot issues, and he has a health history. Where is he right now? And can you give me an idea how the split is going to be with Blake Corum?
Yeah, so he got back into individual drills late in OTAs, and then was able to practice in sort of the walkthrough install that they did, which was technically replaced their mini camp. They don't usually run a traditional mini camp, but they did an install, and he was able to participate. So he's going to be a full go by training camp again, barring a setback. Sean McVay expects him to be a full go in training camp. The thing with Kyren is he is so productive, even if he's missed time. And the Rams run game is kind of back to what it needs to be, particularly meeting the league in the moment that it's at, what defenses are doing. They're running a lot of gap stuff. Duo was like their favorite run, where Sean McVay maybe ran very little duo. He was outside mid-zone guy, and then, gradually started moving more into that concept. And then it just clicked for them. So then they spammed it through the first part of the year. And then they diversified again and got Kyren in the pistol a lot, which was I expect to see that again this year. And frankly, I expect to see a lot more teams use it because they saw a Sean McVay offense use it, and now they're going to be like, "Oh, look, that shiny thing."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so, but yeah, Kyren. First of all, he's special. He is a special player. They have a pretty robust analytics department and a buy-in from the coaches and scouts on what you perhaps maybe commit or invest in at that position, that I think is tracking along the same lines as where kind of the league markets are right now. So what I mean by that, is they traded up for Kyren in that round that they picked him, and then they traded up for Blake Corum, they picked Blake Corum high as well. And so when they make those moves for those players, like, Sean McVay really believes in them, not because he likes them as people or whatever, but because he truly sees a vision and a fit. And it's something that I think they would have moved toward a year earlier, even when Kyren was a rookie, but he was hurt. And so that's the big caveat with him, is he hasn't been able to stay healthy. And then now I think what they're going to try to look at, and it seems to me like a very obvious thing to try, is, okay, can you keep him healthy if you're getting him a little bit more rest during the week, if you're getting him a little bit more rest or spelled a little bit during games, if you're taking away some of the contact that does put the wear and tear on the body, if you're basically limiting risk as much as possible. You obviously can't truly eliminate injuries from the game, but if you're limiting as much risk as you can while also maximizing, his, how he could carry the ball for you and the diversity in which he can run. I think finding that balance is going to be the question of training camp. What that balance will look like, I have no doubt that it will be, they will, I don't want to say split, because it's not going to be an even split, but Blake will get some reps, and Ronnie Rivers will probably even get some reps as well, to spell both of those players, or for different situational things. And so I think that you're basically looking for the number, and you're trying to find the number, but that's what their athletic training and sports science staff will do during training camp, and especially during those padded practices, and especially during those joint practices with other teams. They're practicing against 3 other teams this year. That sports science and sports performance staff is going to find out, okay, what is max energy output while limiting risk? They're out of place right now with that department where they can do that. And they're not thinking about, fantasy football people, obviously, but it would be nice to know that number just on a personal level. Like, I would like to know, but they're looking at what's the way we can maximize Kyren, also get this talented player who we believe in the rookie Blake Corum. How can we maximize both players, knowing we're going to need Blake for 4 years? We're going to have Kyren for 2 more years, and we need to maximize both of them while not over maximize or overspend or overexerting the younger player who is going to eventually, take over pending, what happens in 2 years of the contract, but also maximizing your lead rusher, who is like a bona fide star at this point. And so it's a tough pick, because the injury history, and then you also know that he's going to be getting spelled every once in a while. But also when he is on the field, not only Kyren, but the offense as a whole is enormously productive. So like for me, it's kind of like, again, kind of like Cooper, it's kind of like medium risk, very high reward.
And you know what? Upside, playing for the upside. I think that, and he's because of the foot issues, he's dropped a little bit in early drafts. I'm starting to say, we're getting a bargain at that point.
I will tell you, we talked about this a bit with Cooper, but like everything that the Rams are going to try to do, they expect to be a playoff team. So everything that they're going to try to do this year in terms of what a carry share might look like, what their energy outputs might look like, what a pitch count in practice during the week might look like, what rest days might look like. It's for maximizing people in December and January and February. Like even if Kyren missed the time, in the middle of the season, it actually kind of worked out for him because he was healthy through the final stretch, but then he hurt his hand in the Detroit game. So I don't know whether he would have been available should they have made it deeper in the playoffs. So they really see that and they're like, okay, we need to make sure that we have either a seamless transition to another guy if he is hurt. We also, at the same time, it's also true that he is their lead guy. He's their star. He's their starter. He's their guy. But the reality of the situation is they need him late in the season. And they need to also make sure that they're not, again, and I like Darrell a lot, but that they're not, signing Darrell Henderson, out of the Santa Monica Flag Football League, in the middle of the season, because teams figure that out. That can be successful for a game, but then teams figure that out. And so they need as seamless, a drop off as possible between the two. Should there be one? And if there's not one, then it's really, from a team perspective, it's really not a bad problem to have another running back waiting in the wings, like champing at the bit for his turn. That's not a bad problem to have. So it'll be interesting. I do think, again, that those training camp periods and those practices, those energy outputs, that's going to be really interesting to monitor.
Oh, it's gonna keep an eye on it. A question on a potential sleeper: is Davis Allen potentially?
In my opinion, sleeper? Yes. In my opinion,
oh,
absolutely. Absolutely, in my opinion. Davis Allen looked fantastic in OTAs, and I always hint because, the rules of the credentialed media is like you can't report schematic things until the coach addresses them publicly, but we do get to see quite a bit in OTAs and training camp. And I always hint, like my hint with Puka, as you'll remember, last year was significant mental workload.
And I saw that in your last article.
Significant mental workload. Yeah. Davis Allen. Significant mental workload. Yeah. So I would, yeah. And also he trained here this offseason, which is significant. Like, again, another, to use my favorite word, significant, like training here this offseason, getting on the Rams programming. He looks bigger. He definitely looks a touch faster. Again, it's not contact yet, but touch faster. And the dude catches everything. He catches everything. So I just think, and working with Nick Caley for a second year in a row, I do think that this is going to be a good year for Davis Allen.
Outstanding. Any quick hits on the O-line or the defense to keep an eye on? The defense, were like how they shape up against the run or the pass?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the main question and the main topic of the offseason is what do you do minus Aaron Donald? That front, I think, is going to move a lot. I think that front is going to move around a lot. I think they're going to rotate a lot. They've got a couple really versatile players, even though they're young guys. Kobe Turner is super versatile. He could play the nose or the 3-tech. Braden Fisk can play inside or even kind of, push to some of the 4-eye stuff. Jared Verse can play inside or outside. Michael Hoyt, you didn't necessarily want him starting on the edge for you all year last year, but out of necessity, because some of the things you can really mix speed and power. Nick Hampton is someone who I've got an eye on in terms of having sort of like a speed change up. Byron Young looks like he's coming in with almost a chip on his shoulder. Like he felt like he left some sacks on the table, left some chips on the table that he wants to kind of take this year. But what I expect from that front is they'll rotate among I want to say 6 or 7 players. They'll rotate those guys a lot outside and inside. And the corners you can do more with, I think, this year because you have veterans at key positions. Cam Curl is someone to really keep an eye on. I think he is so smart. I got to talk to him a couple times. Just wasn't surprised at all, but just really, really enjoyed talking to him because he is very smart, really understands the big picture of what the defense is trying to do, as well as some of the micro stuff, position flexibility. Him and Quentin Lake at safety is kind of what they started OTAs at. And then they're trying different players in the star and in the nickel because they're trying to figure out what their best option for those, if they do have to move around. I know Quentin has experience with that short area stuff, which he was really good at last year. But at the same time, I mean, he also could be a really good, deep safety with a little bit of position flexibility. And then I think having Darius Williams back has been really outstanding for them because he's very cerebral. He's very smart. He makes plays on the ball. He's going to be able to help them just be a little bit broader in some of what they're going to do coverage wise. Like I said, the front's going to rotate a lot because they have to manufacture a pass rush without Aaron Donald. But the secondary is going to almost have to take a lead role in helping that happen. They're going to have to, I think early in the year, play a little more back to front. So coverage dictating front versus front dictating coverage. Oh. And that's what they did in 2020 with Brandon Staley, and Chris Shula and Brandon Staley are kind of like, they work together, and they have the same John Carroll like history and all of that. And, I think because you have veteran corners and your front is a little bit more inexperienced, I do think you're going to see perhaps a little bit more just aggressive types of coverages. And within the same, it's a zone team. It will be a zone team. It's a match zone team. I rant about this all the time. It's supposed to be a match zone. It's supposed to come down over the tops of routes, so it looks like a zone, but it could actually be a man kind of look, hybrid look. And you're going to see, like, I think a lot of really interesting and like more advanced technical work from the corners, because they are just more advanced players at this point. They had to sort of patch things over for the last couple of years in the secondary, but these are more advanced players. And so this is going to be, I think they're going to take a more significant role in dictating how flexible they're able to be with the front. And again, might have to cover a little bit longer at first while they're figuring out what that pass rush is going to look like. But I do think that pass rush will kind of come to meet them, over the first couple of weeks of the season.
Oh man, this is why that Peter King called you out on his final column as one of the people, one of the true up and coming great minds, not up and coming, one of the truly established minds in the NFL right now. So yeah,
thank you.
This is
I geek
awesome.
over this stuff. Peter, by the way, love what a lovely man, by the way, amazing. But like, this is just fun, right? This is why we love football, is seeing how the pieces work together and how all of the people kind of emerge and like with the story, with Puka, and like how people kind of grow up right in front of you, and how schemes evolve and change. And that's what I love about it. I love talking with fun people about it. So I appreciate that.
Oh man. Okay. I want you to get out of here, but give me a Mexican hot food take, a hot Mexican food take. Any of your favorite hits?
I don't think I have any hot takes, because I just love it. I love it, all of it. But I have to shout out 2 places. So one is my favorite taco spot that I've had since moving back to California. And like, I've eaten a lot out here, and this one to me, and it's, if the people are traveling up the coast, or they're going, even if you have some Cowboys fans who listen and they're going out to Oxnard for practice, go to a little spot on Seward Avenue in Ventura, California, the little beach town, called Tacos Jalisco, and get the Al Pastor, order it extra crispy. Oh my God. Like, it's just perfect. And you can eat it outside, and you get the ocean coming through, and like the salt is in your nose, and like, it's just, and there's a great little coffee shop right next door. So I get my latte and my tacos, and I'm having just like the perfect day. And then also there in Venice Beach, there is a taco truck that parks outside the Whole Foods in town. And that's got to be really high up there as like very close second to my favorite place I've had in California so far, moving back here.
A friend of mine, I think I know which one you're talking about. A friend of mine who worked for NFL Network for a while talked about a Venice taco truck.
It's like it's hidden. It's, I guess, hopefully, go support them, obviously. Yes. But like, it's a hidden gem that everybody knows about. Yeah.
Anything in LA, you got a taco truck in LA, you're gonna do okay. You're gonna do okay. And amiga, we did more than okay here. I'm so grateful that you did this. Please pump anything you got, anything you can give us, because I know you got you're in the lab right now.
Yeah, I've got some fun projects coming up. So Rams fans especially know that along with my Rams coverage, I work on big picture NFL projects too. I've got some really fun ones coming up that have pushed me to learn more and to like dig deeper in certain topics. And the best thing about my job is getting to learn every day and then share what I learned. So a couple of these ones that I've got coming up, without sharing too much, I think football fans in general will love. And I know Rams fans will hold me down, because they always do. So I appreciate it.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, we learned a lot. We got better today. We stayed hydrated. We stayed caffeinated.
We stayed caffeinated.
Yes,
we did it.
yes, mi amiga. Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. So I'm gonna get us out of here because I know you got other stuff to take. You got to work on those projects, but I want to make sure you're going to Familia FFB on YouTube. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, get those notifications because there's more other teams coming up. Also, if you're going to playing underdog, if you're doing that use that promo code Familia when you do your initial deposit, and just start drafting and keep drafting and keep drafting, and then just leave it alone. Best ball, the best thing there is. Otra vez, Jordan, muchas gracias for joining us. Familia, muchas gracias for joining us, and remember, todos somos familia. Salud.